sure you show the right side, Joni.
Joni.
Gina.
Hello, my name is Laura Kennedy, and thank you all for coming out today. My sister was 12 years old when someone decided that throwing a rock at her would be a fun idea. The reason why, she had autism. I remember holding her that night while she cried, trying to understand why her peers could not accept that she was different. For over 700,000 people in the UK alone, and countless others in an array of different countries around the world, these experiences are as familiar as they are confusing and painful. To prevent the escalation of ignorance and violence towards people who have autism, you need to understand what autism really is. Today I'll talk about a part of the autism spectrum that is not only affecting my family, but is prevalent in regards to bullying, known as Asperger's syndrome. In a study reported on emcommunity.com by Connie Anderson, out of a collection of 1,167 students with autism, 61% of the students with Asperger's syndrome reported currently being bullied. Susan Cotter stated on an article also published on emcommunity.com after holding a study based on 34 students with autism that many children with Asperger's syndrome have significant social deficits, severe sensory sensitivities, and are teased, isolated, and socially excluded by their peers. I will take this opportunity to delve into the characteristics of having Asperger's syndrome. The three categories that I have separated them into are physical characteristics, social characteristics, and learning characteristics. The difficulty that comes along with having autism can be straining on society as a whole. The physical characteristics of someone with autism, or specifically Asperger's syndrome, are some of the first things that are noticeable to people who are not familiar with the syndrome. Although the spectrum of physical behaviors associated with Asperger's syndrome may widely vary, most who are affected exhibit the following behaviors. They display repetitive speech patterns that may appear monotone or robotic in nature, and keeping eye contact can prove to be difficult, and they usually have awkward movements or mannerisms because they self-stimulate. To someone just watching a scenario play out, they might assume that a child does not know how to listen, and they might assume that the parent doesn't know how to discipline their child, but in reality, they're just displaying the symptoms of having autism. People with autism struggle with understanding and being a part of social environments. People with autism usually display difficulty deciphering appropriate and inappropriate social cues. They usually have limited and inappropriate social interactions, and they tend to have obsessions with unusual topics. I grabbed an example of an unusual obsession from the organization Ambitious About Autism. The example describes a child who has an obsession with shoes. He spends hours of his free time examining shoes, and if he walked by a building with a display of shoes, he would spend at least 5 minutes staring, and if his parents tried to take him away from the shoe display, he would have a panic attack. Every day in the life of someone who has autism consists of struggling and understanding what most people know by instinct. Autism is labeled as a learning disability because of the differences from their neurotypical peers. As mentioned on autism.org.uk's website, a student won't be diagnosed until after the child noticeably struggles through school. After speaking to an autism instructor of 10 years, Ms. Tate, she stated, they get too focused on outside stimulant and struggle with focusing on what's in front of them. Ms. Tate also mentioned that they can't connect aspects of learning to their lives, so they need to learn through repetition. Through simply attempting to understand autism, we are that much closer to treating everyone with kindness and respect. Being caring towards everyone starts with the attempt to understand. The aspects I've explained should start you on your adventure to understand what autism really is. Scientists are still learning about autism. Autism is starting to really have a voice because of organizations such as Autism Speaks or Autism Society. I would recommend that you look at the information they have available to you and try to keep an open mind next time you see someone who doesn't act the way you think they should. Autism affects more than most people realize, and being aware of characteristics that people with autism might have will prevent unnecessary and cruel experiences. America as a society needs to be more aware of the characteristics of autism in order to prevent negative stigmatization and violence against those towards those who are different. Thank you. Good job!
How long?